start with you, John.
John Downey.
Doug Walker, I represent the schools.
Sandy Flora, City of Delphi Council.
Brett Farr, County Council.
Don Sharpley, County Sheriff.
Warren Reynolds, Area Plan.
Jordan Willis, Town of Camden.
Cameron Yates, Area Plan Director. Okay. Now we'll do the approval of minutes from the January 24th meeting. Anybody have anything they want to add or correct or revise or delete? As you can all tell, Gloria does a great job with keeping detailed minutes. If there's no additions or corrections, I will entertain a motion to approve. Second. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're moving on to the main order of business. Cameron, do you want to give us an overview before we hear from the city of this?
The city is gonna present the, amendment to the Delphi Comprehensive Plan, the Delphi Pedestrian Bike Master Plan. So we have Mayor Roaring and JT Devon here to present. It will need to be opened up to the public for public hearing.
Anita, can you come up and give us a summary of the,
Yep.
she needs to give a summary, right? Of the master plan? And then open the floor bids.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the order is, but, yeah, so I think you've had a chance to look at the bicycle and pedestrian master plan. We received a grant from the Department of Health to do this, and one of the main reasons why we were concerned about updating this, and it's a kind of a separate piece of our comprehensive land use plan. Delphi has more than 14 miles of trails, of historic trails, and trails throughout the city as well, but they don't all connect, and sometimes they take you into intersections that are not necessarily the safest. And so part of the planning process was to make sure that we were considering safety for the trails, be that continuing to add cameras and signage to the trails. So that was a component of the master plan. Also, some future trail development was included in the plan. We engaged a steering committee that included people from Family Health Department, Kevin Hitzman. We had high school students involved as well, the street department, a council member, Delphi Preservation Society, the Wabash and Erie Canal with Dan McCain and Mike Teffold. Actually, we had, I think, three high school students who were involved in this as well, along with Scott Brosman, representing the county chamber, and also former director of Camp T, downtown business owner Kayla Brooks, community representative Cesar Cervantes. So we had a very wide, I think, representation of people who were on the steering committee, and met with them, and HWC Engineering was doing our planning process along with us. They also did the comprehensive land use plan for the city of Delphi. We had 3 advisory committee meetings, four advisory committee meetings throughout the year, September and November, 2 in November and 1 in December. And then, public workshops along the way to kind of get another opportunity for the public to be involved in that participation. One of the really interesting exercises I think that we did, we broke up in one of the meetings into groups. Each table Carroll had a map, and I think, yeah, we've got an image of it there. And we literally sat down to look at where we would, put new trailheads if that were an option, where trails should be extended beyond where they are now, where are there connections that are not easy to follow, what do we need to do in terms of signage, things of that sort. There are a number of different types of excuse me, of usage of trails for bicycles and that share with pedestrians and also with cars. And so we looked at some of those definitions and decided that really there were very few areas where we could share roads and cars comfortably. The survey that was done, that was sent out to people indicated that generally speaking, they don't feel comfortable sharing the roadway with vehicles. And so unless we put in a separate bicycle lane on our main thoroughfares, it will be difficult for us to I think make people feel really comfortable. There were also a lot of suggestions made in terms of some of the greenway areas that we have, and making sure that those were mapped and that people knew that where there were trails that were really good for bicycles. We had a discussion as to whether the trails, the historic trails for the Canal Center were bicycle friendly. And I think if you have really thick tires on your bicycle, you feel pretty comfortable on the crushed stone paths that are part of the canal trails. So we determined that it would be good to highlight the type of surface on our trail systems, be that a sidewalk, concrete sidewalk, be that asphalt, be it a crushed stone. So that is also indicated in the plan. Also, there was quite a bit of attention spent obviously mapping out and talking about our existing facilities, but then how do we do programming and support that so that the purpose really of doing a bicycle pedestrian master plan is to get people active and get them using the trails or using bicycle paths. We have a safe routes to school that was done a number of years ago. Not always the safest route in some cases where it takes people, so what do we need to do to improve that and to encourage bicycling to school or to events so that you don't always have to get in the car and drive there. Programming such as, I think, a few pre-COVID, the police department did bicycle rodeos with youth groups, with kids, and so reinstating some of those programs that would teach safe bicycle handling and how you should signal in traffic and things of that sort. I think that pretty much covers it. You'll see maps that have projected trail extensions and connections, some proposed new trailheads, that is pretty much it, unless there are questions. JT, would you like to add anything to that?
No, thank you, Mayor. Just that we have submitted this final draft of the plan to Department of Health, and they gave us the recommendation to proceed to this adoption process. So they are excited that the community has this, and so I thank you for your time and recommendation tonight, so we can go to council next week for final adoption to, this will become an amendment to the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, question, I did see on one of the maps, I can't remember which one it is, a sidewalk extension in front of the school. And is there a trail that will run then along 421 there? Is that right, where the school is?
The goal is to, yes, if we can get a sidewalk or a paved trail along 421, it would be,
We have a ton of kids that either go south or east from the school, and
yeah.
it's, if that can include that, that would really be a big help.
Well, and, you know, I think, as we planned on doing a project on Armory Road. We don't have that scheduled out, but, it will be one of our community crossings matching grant. And with that, we would do sidewalks on the school side of the road, but also, I mean, if we had, a way for, you know, right now, I think the safe routes takes kids down some of the streets where, you know, as they're headed to school, parents are headed down those same streets to drop kids off, like at the
Yeah, because
elementary
it
school.
dumps them off at the armory and then.
Yeah, and then where you go, yeah. So, improving some of those traffic patterns would be part of that plan, yeah.
Are those sidewalks gonna be sidewalks as well as bicycle walkways like you see down in Indianapolis?
That would be yes, they would be wide enough to be shared for bicycling and pedestrians.
Same goes for up 421 along Van Chevrolet and places like that. Would that be proposed for there, or how
That
would you get
is
along with that?
proposed, you know, right of way up there would be, highway right of way, so obviously we need to work with them for any planning, for that to happen. But yeah, there are a lot of people who try to use that, shoulder now for, you know, for bicycling, from Pittsburgh into town. And it's, well, particularly as it goes past the quarry, it's a really, high traffic area, so, if there are ways to improve that and make it safer for people, for the areas where they want to bike and where they want to, you know, the destinations that they're trying to get to.
Is it a proposed pathway away from the road, or is it narrowing up the road where you put a bike path width there and you have the yellow markers going down?
We don't have specific plans for each of these. These are identified as areas that need improvements. And so one of the next steps then would be to prioritize those and to look for the design elements and then, you know, grants that would help us to accomplish that. So this is really kind of the first step of a much longer process, getting the planning done to, you know, point us in the direction of where changes need to be made, prioritizing some of those, and then once we, you know, have settled on our top 3 or 4, let's say, then we do design work on those and go for grants and opportunities to make them, to implement them. So,
Safety's what I'm thinking, got those gravel trucks coming out,
yeah, it's
stones and the hog haulers coming down the hill,
it's a
bad brakes and
challenging
everything else.
area for certain. Yeah, thank you for that. Other questions?
Anything else? Go ahead. 6:14, we'll open it up for public comments. Debbie, you got anything?
I've got nothing.
Cindy, you got anything? Public comments?
Here.
Nita, JT, Everett, no public comments. 6:14, close public comments.
That was easy.
I will say that my 2 cents, not 2 cents, I take my family down and we, at the, I can't remember all the parts names, but Pizza Hut, we'll get out of Pizza Hut and either go along those or come into the canal with the kids on our bikes, and they have no problem with the gravel on their bikes, so if you want that feedback from a family that actually uses it with multiple different age kids, they don't have any problem with it. We see other people on the trail too, and it's easy to navigate. it's a little difficult coming out of the tunnel going up the hill when you got a bike trailer on the back and a 60-pound kid on the back, but other than that, it's good exercise, so,
That's
but
right.
it's,
Strengthens those leg muscles, right?
yeah, but it's, the trails in Delphi are really neat. I really think, I mean, for a small community to have the trail system that we do is pretty impressive in my opinion. So, and with that, we have to make a favorable recommendation to the Delphi City Council, right?
To make a recommendation to the Delphi City Council, either favorable, unfavorable, or no recommendation to the Delphi City Council.
Well, I will entertain a motion that we make a favorable recommendation for this plan to the Delphi City Council.
So moved.
Just, you have to move it.
Is there a motion to make a recommendation, and I will leave it to the board?
I'd like to make a motion to, for the city of Delphi, or favorable recommendation for their, pedestrian and bike.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion amongst the board? Further discussion, questions? All those in favor of the motion to make a favorable recommendation to the Delphi City Council? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brad.
Moving on, wind and solar ordinance, this is something that we probably need to be maybe discussing at the next meeting. Making sure that we have a very, working with Cindy and probably Miriam Robeson, making sure that we have a very concrete and clear wind and solar ordinance for the county. Right, Cameron?
Yeah, so the reason why I put this on here is, obviously, it's knocking on our back door. You, and on Springboro Road, actually, you can see several of the lights from Delphi itself in Carroll County, so.
I can see them from my house.
We do get a lot of calls. We haven't gotten any calls on specific project, but we have a lot of calls on, just different items involved in solar. So, and then, of course, we have a wind and alternative energy ordinance that was adopted in 2009. So just, the goal is just to make sure that we're current, make sure there's anything we need to change with the times. Like I said, they're one county over, so Cindy's been looking it over, and
They're on both sides of this, County got a monster too.
yeah. So don't get a lot of those calls, but, you know, in the event we do, we wanna make sure we're prepared. So, you know, look that wind and energy ordinance over, and if you see anything that you think needs change or any language. I know Cindy's been researching a lot of it, and Cindy and I's gonna be doing a Farm Bureau, it's a seminar, and it's educational. Yeah, so, well, there's another one, though, there's one more, I think, it's on my pamphlet they sent in the mail. So, it's everywhere. We just wanna make sure we're ahead of the game and get some ideas down and get something going if need be, so that's why we put that on there. Please let me know if you have any suggestions, or if you see, I've been looking at white counties and it's very thorough. So, of course, they have the 1,000 acre, I think I'm not sure how many acres, but it's a very large solar farm up there. It was, I think, last year or year before, so.
It's bigger than that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So, yeah, obviously, the grid, and there's a lot of engineering involved in all this, so when it gets here, there's a lot of work that'll be put into place, but I would much rather be ready for it, so.
Questions I have, do you want me to say them here or email them to you so you guys can review them?
I would
Just email it.
just email them to Cameron, you know.
Because we've talked about a few things, and I've reached out to White County for a few things, but it's a process, that's why we need to get it, you know, get this stuff going, and there's language for it, and there's meetings, there's adoption, and several steps, so sooner than later is my opinion, so if you have anything at all, please email us.
Have you checked the Clinton County, is it fairly the same ordinances as what White County has?
As far as the solar, I have not seen theirs.
I don't think Clinton has a solar yet.
Oh,
Solar doesn't pay 5 cents and sell it to us at 10. But with all the SRECs and government funding coming back to the homeowner, you only get 5 cents and you're still paying 5. That's why they're doing those turbines. But those turbines are sending all the electricity to California. They're way behind.
I think with solar, there are a lot of newer opportunities. Some of the people that got into solar quickly, I think, that a lot of that was a knee-jerk reaction to what they were facing. They just put something out there. But there's so many other options and ways that they can incorporate now solar with additional crop covers and animals or horticulture. And I think that's gonna be really important. If it's going to work, I think it has to work in cooperation with the farm too.
There's solar shingles that are on the market, have been for 5 years. It's like train tracks, you just
Yeah.
lock them,
Yeah.
put them on a roof.
But I think, what we're more concerned about are the solar farms.
Solar farms are big industrial.
Right.
So are we gonna determine then at some point how big?
How big the scope of the project is?
I mean, like, let's, the school farm, we've got 2 fields with,
Right.
one's an acre and a half, and the other one's 7. So 7 acre, is that a solar farm, or is that?
Well, that's why we're.
That's why we're bringing
this out on the
Yeah.
table.
Anything that's already there, of course, it will be grandfathered in.
You get a 5,000 acre field, where do we have that threshold?
There's a
Yeah.
solar farm going in over somewhere around Marion, that's huge, it's 5,000-6,000 acres.
The one up in Stark County, so it's pretty good too.
What he said last night on
7,000 acres up there.
7,200 acres? Okay.
Last guy in Stark.
So, Carroll County's, we have a very large ag district, so.
And one of the most productive ags. in the state.
That's the
That's what I was gonna
weighting
say.
Yeah.
that we have to do with it is, like, I don't think most farmers around here are gonna wanna take their production out for solar, but there are different types of soils and things that might be more usable for that.
We used to use it for soil classification chart. I don't know if we even use that such a thing anymore. We quit using it. Soil was judged, but there was a classification, 1 through 4 is your cropland, and then everything under that. Might be something we can look at.
I seen one that the panels were quite a few feet up in the air, and that equipment could go right underneath them.
I honestly wish ours was put in way wrong. It works, it's doing the job, but
That's not, for a farmer,
It's-
they got the best of both worlds. They can still keep their crop in, plus they're generating. So, is that the one we seen for last week?
Mhm.
The picture?
Yes.
So they were big. But,
Solar is developing
Yes.
on itself too, the type of equipment and things that they can do and the different options for that they have on cooperative.
if you look into other counties, or you're gonna email that to us and let us take a peek at it.
Yeah, so we wanna find something that, there's gonna be, obviously, did you guys read the one I sent from White County? It's very thorough, I think it's, I don't know how many pages it was.
It's huge.
Yes, and I think that had a lot to do with the farm one up there, they did a lot of work for that, but, I will reach out to a few other counties and see what they get, and then if you guys wanna do a comparison, and, whatever you guys want me to do, I need to know, because I mentioned this last year, March, April, somewhere in there, that we need to get this going, and, so, you guys tell me what you want, and I'll go out and get it. So, tell me,
I'd say if we've had some information from White County.
We've
you
got
have
that
one,
already.
Well, yeah, White, Clinton, Tippy, or whatever,
surrounding county.
surrounding counties.
Does Cass have any there?
No, there's, I think they're fighting.
Are they?
Bump up Howard,
Howard?
you got Merrill Brothers over there,
Yes, oh, yes.
and they're got the largest solar farm in Florida.
I think there was a map showing which counties had solar in something,
There was a
from
map
the
that had
seminar,
solar farms, and then there was,
that had a combination. I'll look through those, I'll probably talk to, the gal that gave the seminar and ask her which ones she thinks are some of the better ones.
Anything else regarding that? For that aspect, we'll move on to director's report.
so for the month of January, we had 2 new homes, 12 permits, 16 site visits, 22 compliance certificates issued, and 2 new addresses. Recently, we had FEMA come to Delphi. They're proposing to change some firm maps within the county. A lot of it is directed towards the area down by Save-A-Lot. So when I say firm map, that's the map that indicates the zones, the flood zones, the elevations. It's the main maps that we get as flood plain administrators. So that's a long process, and they brought to our attention a couple months ago. So they had a open house. I sent you guys those invites, and I be honest with you, the open house and the in-person I was shocked. It was a lot different than I thought, and it was very productive. There was a lot of questions, and FEMA had a lot of people there, a lot of documents. Everybody that I talked to that came in, that had questions and was kind of disgruntled, left thinking, wow, this is okay. So they got all their questions answered. So I thought it went very well. The virtual, I tried for 35 minutes to get logged on, and was emailing the people in charge of it, and it never would. It was a Zoom meeting, I believe, and they kept kicking back saying, the typical Zoom. So it was basically the same thing, other than it was just for people to get on the internet and go into different chat rooms and discuss any questions. So haven't heard back the next step for that. But once we do, it's a long process. So if you guys have any questions regarding that, once we hear back from FEMA, I'll be happy to update you. We don't have control of that at the local level. When FEMA comes in and says we're gonna change the firm maps,
So what's that mean for that area down there then?
so right now, a lot of that area down there is in the X zone, which is protected by a levee. So we're trying to get a few different areas changed. What they didn't take into consideration was there's flood pumps down there. There's been a lot of infrastructure put in there since, I'd say last 15 or 20 years, Mayor, that they didn't put into their engineering. So they had no idea it was even down there when they was doing all these maps. So some things are gonna be hopefully changing. Do you wanna touch base on that?
Yeah, we did, excuse me, raise those issues with FEMA and DNR. But until the levy is certified, until US 421 is certified as a levy, they won't take into consideration any of the things that we have done to mitigate water. The fact that the canal is artificially watered, it's not a natural body, the fact that that gets shut off during a major, rain event, the fact that we have, floodgates, the fact that we have the pumps to take water out of the land side, none of that was taken into consideration. So we are working with BS Engineering to certify that is the last levy that hasn't been certified. Of course, it's a major one. So we've got all of the geotech back. They're working on submitting that application, and hopefully we'll make some progress on that in the months ahead. Once it is certified, then all of those things that Cameron was mentioning do come into play, and the land side will probably go back to X, protected by levy. So probably there were some rates, flood insurance rates that were impacted by those new maps. But I think most of the people who came in to that session with FEMA left feeling like, that it wasn't as bad as they thought it was gonna be. So hopefully we'll be able to accomplish the certification and agreements with NDOT for that special use and get that back to protected by levy.
I got a question about that. Couple other things, the 3 inches of rain we got last week, and then this week we had a couple, yesterday it rained quite a bit, and Mike and I have been watching the dams and all the bodies of water this morning, and went out and Oakdale's putting out pretty close to 9,000, which is right there where we start to look at things, so it calmed down, and for now we're in good shape, and Mike feels comfortable that we'll continue to be in good shape, so something we do every major rain event, when that USGS gauge hits a certain limit, it throws out emails, so that tells us that we need to start looking at it, and it's a nice thing to have for Mike and I think the city has access to them as well, so. March 9th, I have a DNR continuing ed seminar, but other than that, Lori continues to do a great job in the office, and Cindy as well. I don't love her as much as I used to, but she's always there when you need her. So if you guys have questions, please email me. I send out things, and then, you know, that's why I want to get you guys the information you need prior to the meetings. That way you have it, and then if we have a discussion point, we can talk about it at that point. But, you know, that's what I want to do, is I want you guys to get it to me. If I have to research it, if I don't have the answer, I'll give it. So there's no such thing as a dumb question. So if you want something to be looked into a little bit further, or just got questions, by all means, please email me. It's especially about the meetings, because we do the packets, and we try to get everything in place for the meetings, and how many we need to print, and what information we need, so that's key, because if we're not gonna have a forum, we need to let the people that's petitioning know. So other than that, we're doing really well for February. I think so far for February, 3 or 4 new homes, so we're doing all right. It's starting to come back a little bit. Not taking off yet, but we're getting there, so that's all I've got.
Anything for Cameron? Cindy?
Just, Cameron and I both did the seminar with the Farm Bureau with regard to wind and solar energy. Well, there were other aspects also too, but that was the one I was most interested in, because I think it's important to get something going this year on it, because their inquiries are already happening in this county, I know that.
Yes.
So, we need to get moving on that. The other thing I started working on is, when we, last tried to update our ordinance as a whole, one of the things that was included in that was updating all the codes that are listed in it, the state codes. And so I started going through that and making sure those codes are still applicable, and if they aren't, is finding out, okay, where they are now, and if any of the language pertaining to that has changed, that we would need to update also in the ordinance. So I know we can at least do that, and should not have too much negative recourse against us, I think, in trying to put up commissioners out of vote. So my biggest fear is if we did have to take someone to court and we used improper code citations, we would lose. So we don't want to do that.
We got anything for Cindy? Anything from the board? Entertain a motion for adjournment. Is there a second for adjournment? Any second? All in favor of adjourning? Say aye. Aye.
Turn at 6:34.
That's usually the quickest one to get a second.
I know, I was like, this is adjournment, come on.
I like that, everybody wants to stay, I love it. Nobody wants to go, I love it.
I know he's gonna count Jordan's story back there as a second.
Well, I hadn't been here a while, I just wanted to stick around for a while. Keep this open for a little while.
Yeah, dude, I mean, we can hang out here, you know, talk about good old days.
Yeah.
I don't know if Kevin like that downstairs, he's probably ready to go home. Thank you, guys.